you look at India's economy, when the economy is doing well, when inflation is low, growth is relatively high, then there is no major reason for having demonetization. No particular reason why it should be done now, and at this moment, such an emergency measure.
Given that the 500 rupee note is used by housewives, students, rediwalas, vegetable vendors, and a whole range of artisans, given that it was 48% of all currency,
Absolutely.
and no one really considered it a high denomination note, should it have been demonetized?
No. Short answer.
So it was a mistake to demonetize?
No, but it could be remonetized. You know what I'm saying is everything, what you have demonetized, you have, hopefully you have not demonetized it permanently, that you have 102,000. You would have to have some progressive increases in note circulation.
The Attorney General has told the Supreme Court today that district cooperative banks will not be given permission to deal in the old or the new currency. He's just said it to the Supreme Court today. Does that disappoint you?
No, what he said, he has the right to say so. He has to decide what has to be done, but he has to also take care of the issue that you raised, that if those district cooperative banks are not there, then what other kinds of banks are there, or what other kinds of providers of money are there to make cash available to Indian organized sector. Vision of making India cashless is certainly practical in, say, 50 years' time. So you have to take a time horizon where you can make India cashless, as it were. I mean, just as you have made India full of mobiles and full of, mobile phones, Aadhaar cards and PAN cards and whatever it is. I mean, but this vision cannot take place in the next 5 years or 6 years.
So if the motivation or the justification for demonetization is to make India cashless and digital, you're suggesting it's happening 50 years too soon.
No, but you just think about it. That digitization requires a certain process, and it's a process which has to be accessible to the literate person. I mean, so it can't, I mean, how do you do it right away? And similarly, I mean, apart from digitization, when making India cashless, when much of the transactions are small and most of the salaries are small, how do you make it cashless? Because people don't have credit cards all over the country. I mean, number of people who have credit cards, how many are there? So how do you make it cashless? How do you make a payment for groceries?
So you're saying this is an idea whose time hasn't come?
No, this is an idea whose time has come, but keep it as an idea.
On the assumption that whatever you have in the bank account is actually legitimate declared money, and if it's not, tax authorities know what's in bank accounts, I think people should be totally free to take out whatever they want from their bank account. The fact that we put restrictions simply means that there is a shortage of currency and they want to limit the extent to which it's distributed around different people.
So when government spokesmen, sometimes ministers, sometimes senior bureaucrats, claim that this is actually being done, these restrictions are actually being placed to somehow curb black money, that is, forgive my colloquialism, baloney.
I've not heard that particular explanation, but I wouldn't find that very convincing. I mean, let's be clear. When normalcy is returned, is it the intention that when you've got your money in the bank and the tax people know what there is in the banks, can you or can you not take it out in cash? The short answer should be yes, you should be able to.
And if you can't, it's only because there's a shortage of cash.
Probably true. I mean, if you wanted to narrow the scope of, so to speak, the disruptive strike, limiting the demonetization to 1,000 would have kept a lot of people out of the danger.
This is somewhere, again, the government should have thought carefully, and if it had, it would probably have decided not to demonetize the 500 for this reason.
Well, I don't know what they would have decided, and I don't know what the pros and cons are.
But they should have thought carefully about it.
To my mind, first of all, to my mind, you don't demonetize 86% of the currency unless you can demonstrate that you can very quickly replace the currency.
And that they can't, because they haven't printed it.
We find difficult. So in retrospect, it would have been better to demonetize half of it, which is the 1,000, and leave the 500 untouched. In my view, too much of the discussion is focusing on black money, or rather that part of black wealth which is held in cash. Now,
Stock
whether
of
it's,
money.
yeah, whether it's held, whether it's 5%, 15%, those are relatively low numbers. But see, the important thing is, what are people disgusted about? They're disgusted about a system where black money is being generated. You can't do your business without getting permissions, which you have to bribe people for. Unfair, overly connected people get a preference over you. They want to stop the generation of black money. That's very different from the stock of black money. So in my view, I believe, by the way, that any identification of the black economy phenomenon as a target is the correct identification. But the most important thing is the generation, the flow of black money.
That is not affected by these measures at all?
Not at all.
It is despotic in the sense that if a government promises a promissory note, when that was given, we will give you this amount of compensation. When you break that promise, he calls this a despotic action. This coming from somebody with the eminence of Dr. Amartya Sen.
So there is a clear provision for it. It's not, it's not as despotic would have meant actually that the government went against or outside of the constitution. That's not how it is. Also, by the way, I think a despotic action should create some uproar from the public to the opposition. The public sentiment has been quite the contrary, actually. It's best captured for me in a picture that has been doing rounds where this owner of a shop, Mr. Pamecha, who stands in front of his shop and says that, in response to the strike that was called for, or the Bharat Bandh that was called for on the 28th of November, so the caption on his shop, that sign on his shop says that, Kala dhan tumhara duba, हम दुकान क्यों बंद करें 28 को हमारी दुकान 2 घंटे ज़्यादा खुली रहेगी. So that is what really captures the mood of the public. So I really don't quite appreciate in what sense this was a despotic act. The way the economy is evolving, we had second quarter numbers which were of course all prior to the November 8th action, but the economies did do okay in the second quarter, 7.3%. And now as we are going forward, certainly we'll see some decline in this quarter, the third quarter that is. How much I shall not speculate, but
you'd have some calculation. The government has to have some estimate.
No. The point I'm making to you is that the activity is very rapidly coming back up, and so I think we'll see some decline in the third quarter in the growth rate. We'll see in the third quarter some bit of less than what will happen in the third quarter will happen also in the fourth quarter. But I think whatever losses that happen in this particular year, in aggregate, I think we are going to recover in a big way as we go into the next year and the following year.
255 million people now have bank accounts under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So the issue of financial inclusion is no longer what it used to be 3 years ago. Don't get me wrong. Several of these people have RuPay debit cards, but they have not been persuaded, they have not been motivated to realize that those debit cards can be used for transactions and not just for ATM withdrawal.
What is the impact on casual laborers who depend on day-to-day income to survive? If manual labor on construction sites, manual laborers on farms now find their employers can't pay them and they're not employed.
Are we talking about the transition period, or are we talking about beyond the transition period?
We're talking about
which
first
one?
The transition period.
First, let's talk about the beyond the transition period.
Talk about the transition, then we'll go beyond.
Now, obviously, in the transition period, everyone is suffering an inconvenience. Now, if you are looking at the inconvenience, a large part of it was related to ATMs. Now, so far as the banks...
Well, no, forgive me. I don't think casual wage labor actually gets money from ATMs.
Who does casual labor get?
They get money in cash from their employers.
A, you need to have currency notes printed. B, you need to deliver the printed currency notes to banks. C, you need to deliver the currency notes to recalibrated ATMs. These are different steps in the process.
But I'll come to ATMs in a moment's time.
Now, so far,
were enough notes printed and delivered to banks in time or not? That's the question.
You are mixing up two questions. Were enough currency notes printed? Were they delivered to banks?
Well,
these are two separate questions.
Let me then break them up to make it easier for you. First of all, enough currency notes weren't printed. By Sumitra Chaudhary's calculations, only 600 out of the 2,300 plus were ready. Only 600.
I'm not going to get provoked into Sumitra Chaudhary's calculations. By around the 15th of January, I'm sorry, by the 15th of November, I think this figure has been quoted by the Finance Minister also, Finance Ministry, 8 lakh crores of currency notes were printed.
If that black money in fact was there, it has been successfully laundered by a government that is incompetent or intentionally compliant. The people of the country will have to decide.
Now, Dr. Mitra, whether what's achieved is worth the pain depends entirely on how big that pain is. So let me ask you, what do you believe will be the hit to India's GDP as a result of demonetization?
Well, I've got a best case scenario with quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, where I have been very, very careful, and quarter 4. You know what is the best case scenario? The best case scenario is close to what Dr. Manmohan Singh has said. It is 7.5% was the rate of growth of 15-16. We will perhaps fall to 5.5%. And you know what that means? 3 lakh crores of GDP would be lost. Now I come to the second option, but economists always look at alternatives. Possible case scenario. And that again I've done a detailed estimate, and I find the growth rate may fall on the aggregate for this year to 4.3%. Will arrive at 4.3%, which means it will fall by 3.2%. So either 2% best case scenario or 3.2% as the possibility, which would mean a loss of 4.7 lakh crores of GDP extinguished. So you have a choice. You want to kill 3 lakh crores GDP, or you kill 4.7 lakh GDP. You take your pick. This is the biggest scandal of the world in terms of a growing economy, which has simply been extinguished in terms of its growth momentum. This scenario, this is why economists across the world, in India and elsewhere, everybody, without any exception in terms of known economists, 2 Nobel laureates among them, are today shocked. This happened in very major dictatorial nations of the world, as I indicated to you. Soviet Union, Zaire, Myanmar, Ghana, Nigeria. Where is the example of over 86% being withdrawn?
Okay.
In terms of circulating currency in a democracy, in a market economy.
What the government believes is, and there is an element of economic truth in it if it turns out to be correct. If out of say 14 or 15 lakh crore high denomination notes, or if all of them were legal tender, all of them were legitimate, believe me, all of them will go through the bank. The government hopes that some part will not come back to the bank. The part that does not come back to the bank is obviously illegitimately earned income, and that can be liquidated. That's the government.
So you believe that's only a fraction? You believe that's only the fraction, and you're saying, therefore, for the kind of pain which is being caused, the gain is very limited. That's your broad point.
There's more economics to it, which I'll have to explain. You see, I don't know how much will come back to the banking system. But at least Dr. Raghuram Rajan, in a speech and answering questions, said, listen, most of it will come back, because there are many ways in which it can be brought back into the banking system. But to the extent that money does not come back to the bank, the RBI will extinguish that liability. But money is created by the RBI to meet the demand. Currency is printed to meet the demand for currency. People need currency to transact their business. Therefore, if the money in circulation is insufficient to sustain economic activity, RBI will print more currency. So ultimately, after all this exercise, you find, say, after 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, we have got the new 2,000 rupee note, the new 500 rupee note, and perhaps the new 1,000 rupee note, altogether adding up to 15 or 16 lakh crore. This exercise is an exercise in futility.
Is it true that you also considered demonetization?
And we rejected it, and what did we do instead? Raghuram Rajan and I, what did we do instead? In January 2014, we announced all pre-2005 notes will be phased out. New series will replace it. You please go and exchange your old series. After March 31, the old series will not be legal tender. That is the way, and then to the extent that old series does not come back to the bank, it is impounded and liquidated.
So that's what you would have done?
That is what we did, not would have done.
And in this situation also you would have done?
And who opposed it? Meenakshi Lekhi, spokesperson of BJP, went on air and called it an anti-poor move. If that was anti-poor, what is this?
Are you saying therefore if Raghuram Rajan was still RBI governor, he would have not accepted this?
Undoubtedly.
You're saying you're confident. This is not speculation.
No,
this is based on your own experience of January 2014.
I know his views. I mean, he has not spoken.
Yes.
And maybe he will not speak because he's far away now.
Yes.
But I know from my experience, he would not have agreed to demonetization.
We've welcomed the demonetization as the right move for the country in the long run. The concerns obviously are in the short run because exactly as you mentioned just now, with withdrawing 85% of the cash in circulation in an economy like ours, which has been so dependent on cash, causes a lot of short-term pain. If I think about some of the companies that I've been talking with over the last 2 weeks, some companies saw a drop of 90% in their business in the first 3 or 4 days. Over the last week or so, it's come back up to about a drop now of around 30%. So things are starting to stabilize and get back to normal, but we're still a long way from getting back to normal. I'd say on average, companies in the consumer space are still seeing about a 30% drop in sales. Now this is at the overall level. I think in rural markets, they're still seeing a higher drop in sales. In urban markets, they've seen more of a recovery as cash has come back into the system and as consumers have started using credit cards and other means of making payments. It is having an impact. I mean, I think it is having an impact on trade. It's having an impact on industry as well. I think the deepest impact is though on the informal sector, as you mentioned, and on the rural economy. I think the deepest effect in urban areas is on people again in the informal sector. It's the small trader selling fruit or vegetables on the side of the road, or the person running a taxi or a rickshaw. So I think that's where the impact has been most substantially felt. And again, it brings us back to the same solution. We have to get more money into circulation as quickly as we can. What I was mentioning earlier on was that I believe the capacity for printing notes is about 10,000 crores a day. And that 10,000 crores a day says that we can put back into circulation about 3 lakh crores a month, right? With working at full capacity. So we should look, I think, also at alternative solutions. We should look, for example, at having more currency printed overseas.
Those who understand the subject, that black money is invested in bullion, in share market, in real estate, or laundered abroad. There's a big laundering industry which has opened up in the last 20 days. Prime Minister is living in a cuckoo land. 4% of Indians use these debit cards, credit cards, but also recently worldwide and in India. In India, the debit card, the data has been compromised, systems were hacked, by people, Pakistanis based in China. Government has yet to give an answer, RBI or the banks. Number two, the credit card frauds are taking place.
The Prime Minister sketched out. For some, not for all, it was enticing. Does Congress share it or not?
Listen,
that's all I'm asking. Do you share it or not?
It is an idea which will take decades. Even America is not cashless. England is not cashless.
This is not an idea whose time has come, as Manmohan Singh once famously said. This is an idea well advanced of its time.
When you have 43% of Indians unbanked, I'm sorry, a large percentage of Indians still illiterate, people who are just...
So you say this is, and I'm quoting you, so you say this is cloud cuckoo land.
4% of your people are taught or know how to use these credit card, debit cards.
Actually, it's even less, it's 2.6.
So then...
Okay, so it's cloud cuckoo land. I'm just confirming, it's cloud cuckoo land.
Can I ask you one question? Why is UK still having banks or printing pound sterling, or America is printing dollars, or Euro Bank is printing euros?
I accept your point.
So if he thinks that you will become cashless, then I have to question his wisdom. What is his thinking?